is Nasreen. I go by Nikki. Last name is Allen. And I'm a prenatal yoga teacher, a birth doula, a big time birth advocate, and I like to educate around all things yoga, holistic wellness, and birthing. And my mission is helping women completely embody themselves and their voice and feel like they have the power to, whether they're trying to achieve pregnancy, are already pregnant, or about to give birth, that they have the voice, they have the knowledge, they have the ability within them already to just trust themselves and know what is best for them, what is best for their baby, and that they can use their voice to say, I'm not comfortable with that, or tell me a little bit more about that, or hold on, let me learn more about that. Me going through getting ready and learning all about like, okay, this is what you might feel, and trusting myself, because I feel like that's just been something that I'm always like, okay, how does this feel within my own body? Is this something that I feel comfortable with? And knowing that I had options, knowing from the classes that I took during my pregnancy that, okay, like, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to look this way. I can say how I want my birth to go, and I can achieve that. I feel like the biggest thing, because this is what helped me find more of a passion for yoga, was being pregnant and doing movement and meditation and like all of the yoga, and knowing that that was something I could just take with me whenever I needed. And I was able to do that when I went into labor. And I tell everyone who comes to prenatal yoga, I'm like, yoga got me through. It was yoga that helped me during my pregnancy, and it wasn't just the movement, right? Like that definitely helped, because there's so much happening in the body, and I was able to open my hips more. I was able to ground if I felt nervous or afraid, which I feel like is a normal thing for a lot of first-time moms. And then I was able to make that connection with my baby. Like if I was just sitting there and I was just breathing and had my hands on my belly, that was when she kicked the most. Like she just loved that.
So first of all, it's the mindfulness. It's being in touch with your body. It's developing those pathways to have control over the birth. You're doing a lot of pushing. You're being put in uncomfortable positions. You're trying to gain access to the birth canal to allow the baby to push through very easily. So you have to be in control of your body. And yoga is wonderful for that. You develop these neural pathways like almost immediately in the first session. And those pathways, really help you, with your motor abilities, with your abilities to push, your strength, and all these things help with the birthing process. The other thing is the mindfulness. It's a very stressful thing. They say that birth is one of the most painful things that you can go through. And doing a vaginal birth is probably that. It's like you have all these muscles contracting that are not used to being contracting. You have this baby that's coming out of your birth canal. And so being able to quiet the mind, to settle yourself, come to a place of calmness, to be able to control your emotions, to be able to control your body during this difficult time, especially during peak contraction or whatever, it helps out tremendously. And the other thing is that it puts you in touch with your body. There's different stages of pregnancy. There's a lot of grounding, and it also puts you in touch with other pregnant women, your cohort. They have ideas, they're able to help you through this process. You're not only doing it with other VBAC mamas, but you're going to be doing it with mamas that have had multiple births, or maybe you have some information or some guidance for somebody that this is their first time. It's like they're able to share this information, so it provides this community.
Honestly, this is like beyond. So first of all, going into labor, I have had so many women that are like, oh my gosh, I felt so much more comfortable being able to tune into my breath. because of this experience, knowing that I could take all of that. If I wanted to get into like a squat because that was going to feel comfortable as I was having a contraction, then I had that balance in my body. I was able to ground. I had the power of my breath that I could just go back into. I had worked myself up to just being able to tune out the world and tune into the present moment. And that's why prenatal yoga is just like so big for me. Most of that happened as I started meditating and just realizing like, okay, I can do this wherever. Like if I'm feeling chaotic or if I'm feeling calm, whatever I'm feeling, I can just sit and start using my breath. I can tune into myself. I can feel what's happening in my body. And that's just something that I feel everyone needs to know. It doesn't have to happen anywhere. And the other thing too, as my belly got bigger and instead of doing like half pigeon pose, which was my favorite for opening my hips, I'm like, oh, I can do this on the side of my bed and I don't have to lay over because belly's in the way. Like I can prop my leg up and I can get deep into that still. And I'm just here, like right before bed.
I'm Brandy Adams. I am a graduate of MelMarie Yoga's 200 class. I am almost finished with my 300. I jumped right in. I didn't want it to end. I am a mom. I am a wife. I am a full-time realtor. And I absolutely love yoga. I really do believe that yoga with special needs kids is a huge deal. I mean, kids go to therapy and that helps train their mind. They learn how to do certain things. My son's in therapy right now for autism behavior. And sometimes Western medicine, I feel like, is our go-to, but really there are other ways. There are more holistic ways. And that's not saying that medication or whatever they might need is bad, but it's an avenue that you can explore, and breathing really does calm us down, and movement really does center us. And I feel like if we could do stuff like that with our kids, that we could really help with fine motor, gross motor skills, and kind of getting their minds, which are going a million miles a minute, a little calmer, and make them a little calmer as well.
Kind of background. So I got my degree in English and secondary education and worked for about 7 years in the middle school setting and loved it. It was amazing. Just working with the kids really lit me up. I had my daughter, and the original plan was like, I'm gonna keep teaching and working once I'm a mom. And it became a lot to balance when she was really, really young. So took a sabbatical and then decided to ultimately stay home. But I never really lost that love of teaching. I continued to homeschool. And then as my kids, I had a second child, and then as they got a little bit older, just really wanted to get back into education and teaching in some capacity. And I didn't really know what I wanted that to look like. I had always loved yoga and actually discovered that as I was working as a public school educator, I worked really long hours. I would get there at 6:30 in the morning and sometimes not go home until 7 o'clock at night. And as much as I loved it, it's a stressful job too. And so finding something that was just for me was really important. So I found a really beautiful yoga studio that was just really close to my home and started practicing there, and just really felt a difference in how I was able to manage my own stress. And even as, I got away from my practice a little bit as my kids were really young, the impact really stuck with me. And so as I got older and I was thinking, how do I want to get back into education in some capacity? How do I want to use my gifts and talents? I thought back to my experiences in the yoga studio and wanted to sort of find that magic again. What I did with, working at 6:30 in the morning and not leaving until 7 o'clock at night, I don't think that I'm an exception to the rule. I saw a lot of educators have schedules like that. And, education and teaching is not a job where you go home and your laptop is closed and everything's put away. I mean, there's grading, there's lesson planning, there's a lot of back end work that needs to be done. And I think yoga can definitely assist teachers in stress management, mindfulness. I mean, you have days where despite whatever amazing class you might have, somebody's off. As an educator, having the skills to be able to ground and regulate is so essential because you're modeling it for the kids, you know? So if the teachers know, and it's not just the asana, it's not just the poses, but it's the breath work, it is the grounding strategies and techniques. If the teachers know that and they're practicing it in obvious ways in front of the students, then the students are gonna naturally pick it up too. So just a really powerful trickle-down effect.
Can teach them directly, but a lot of it is also how we model it. This is why I say self-care is not what we do, but it's who we are, threading it into our homes, bringing it into the lives of our children. It's a coping skill that we're sharing. It's a coping skill that we model. Yeah, it's a coping skill.
She's like, it's dark, I don't want it, right? I'm like, just turn the lights on. So she goes and, she comes in and she's like, I was so frightened. And I like to unpack things with her, right? Like, well, what does that feel like? Where do you feel it in the body? We'll describe it other than the word frightened, right? And like we unpack it. And she says, well, I see spots, right? And I'm like, well, that's your eyes adapting to different light. You're going from light to dark. So anyways, I was like, let's go be brave together. Let's go walk out there. I got to fill up my water, but we'll go in the dark together. And so she's like, I don't want to. And I'm like, you come. And so she walks with me, but she's like, Turn the fridge light on. She's fine. The moment I turn it off, though, she just starts screaming. It kind of scared me. I'm like, all right, it's fine. So I take her in. So she calms down. I'm like, why was that so scary? Well, she just says it's scary. I think it's because she was focusing so much that she was going to be in the dark. I was literally holding her hand. Anyways, so we go through this whole thing, regulate, calm down. I have to go to get something, and I just go out in the dark, but I intentionally didn't turn lights on because I wanted her to see me walk through the dark, no lights, like safe. Well, anyways, I'm walking, and I turn around. My daughter, it's like a scary movie. My daughter's in the dark just watching me, and I'm like, Isla. She's like, yeah? I'm like, where'd you come from? She's like, I followed you. I told myself I am loved, I am loved, I am loved, and I feel brave. Aww. I was like, you're so brave. I was like, yeah. I was like, let's dance in the dark. So we start dancing in the dark. And then it's like, okay, let's walk to the room. And I'm like high-fiving her. And she's like, yeah, I wasn't scared anymore. I was just like, I felt love. I'm loved. I know. I'm like, oh. Did not expect her. Yeah, like night and day. But I mean, when I talk about changing the world, right? It's like when we change ourselves, we model really magical things to people around us, to our children, to our loved ones. And then they start asking questions and they start getting curious. And then it just spills into the hearts of so many. So that's all I got to say about that.
So I found that the number one cause of obesity amongst children is their sedentary lifestyles, and then of course our diet in our society right now. So yoga is a way that can kind of break up that lifestyle, and I've found that a lot of children actually do enjoy it. Just experiencing with my own children, we do yoga at home. They really love it, and again, they get the physical benefits of it as well as just kind of the mental, emotional aspects of it as well. My kids are young, so little children in general, I think they connect very well with stories. And I think the more we connect children to stories, and especially related to nature and being outdoors, I think that can break up a lot of that sedentary lifestyle, but also get all the other beneficial aspects of connecting with nature, being outdoors. So I try to bring yoga as a way to connect children with nature. So my kids love that. We do a lot of nature-themed yoga at home, as well as go outdoors and do yoga.
I have a master's in marriage and family therapy. I got into yoga just myself personally. I started incorporating yoga with the clients, the at-risk youth that I worked with, and I saw the amazing effects it had on the students that I worked with. For about 5-6 years. So then I dove into it. I started looking into yoga practices that incorporated sort of somatic movement stuff, breath work, and stuff that I could use to work with my students. I really connected with the community that I was working with, the at-risk population that I worked with. Worked a little bit more into incorporating the two, kind of marrying the two. I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it in the students that I work with. I've seen it in the clients that I work with. I think it's just, you can, and I think that's probably the trickiest thing is the measuring part of this. Right. You know, it's so intangible. It may seem very woo-woo and very far-fetched and very far in the distance, but it works. I think it does, and I think just the being able to integrate. You can apply things, but the integration piece will be huge for, again, the transformation, or healing journeys.
I see in younger people just trying to reset the way that they've looked at life previously. For example, my children, they have seen me be a workaholic. They have seen me push to get the results that I want. And now to some degree, they feel like that's normal, that that's what they should do. And so when they watch me kind of take this step back now, it's awkward for them. And so I want them to see that if they can start that now at their age, they don't have those set neural pathways, right? That they can take that and they can build a better way of living, a better way of their body responding to things earlier than me in my late 30s trying to go back and correct how I've programmed my body for so long. It's very important that we teach that not just to our age, but we start it earlier in the younger generation. So that way they can have those better processes in place.
I really do love that it's inclusive and it's not just something that mommy does or that I do and that it's excluded from the rest of my family. If I'm finding that it's bringing me joy and peace and comfort, of course I want to share that with everyone, my family especially. And so I love that we are inclusive and that we are able to bring our families into this.
The calmness that they were able to achieve and bring forth with them, like if baby's upset or if they're breastfeeding and they have that like, oh my gosh, because another big fear, right? Like, oh my gosh, what if I don't produce enough milk? And it's like, I've heard, okay, I'm just relaxing. One actually posted like she pumped and she was like, this was when I was like, this was this much that I had from when I was feeling anxious. And then here's the one where I was just like calm and breathing and it was so much more milk. I'm like, yeah, because you were just relaxed in your body and surrendering to the moment and whatever was going to come.
Something I teach a lot in trainings, as you know, is the concept that yoga is like dental floss. It's hygiene. So we go to the mat to learn these things and train our nervous system. So in our day-to-day life, it just happens naturally. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, when I was in labor, for example, it was being able to say and speak up about what I wanted, what I needed, being able to communicate these things in my body. And even just with intention setting, I created like those days leading up, I created the mantra cards. My husband came up with it. He's like, I was like, they're my mantra cards. He said, no, they're your mantra cards. I love that, of like these affirmations during labor and these different things that, yes, you go to a prenatal class, but it's really that hygiene that affects us in our day-to-day, that whole texture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just feel like it's all an act of surrendering and trusting yourself, being able to just tune out the world, because just like pregnancy, there's a lot of advice that just sometimes noise and not helpful. And just being able to say, okay, I don't have to hear this. I don't have to take this in. This might be this person's experience, but it doesn't have to be my experience. What am I feeling? What do I know? I feel like that's the most important thing.
Because they're empowered, you know, and it's an important word. It's important for, you know, we're not in the 90s where, you know, medicine was very paternalistic, you know, take this pill, do what I say, you know, this is what you need to do. It really is collaborative, and the patient has to feel empowered. The patient wants to feel empowered. She wants to, you know, be in charge of her body, in charge of her health. You know, she wants to be collaborative with the medical team, with the physician, with the, you know, nurse practitioners. It's important. And like I said, you get better outcomes when you have that power.
I think that's something that I really love about the MelMarie philosophy is that you know, yoga can be and should be brought to unconventional places. It's not just something that needs to be in a studio at certain hours of the day. And I think that there's a lot of power in that. I sort of thrive in creativity, and that's something that really lights me up and is really fun. It's been a great journey to sort of marry my love for education and yoga and event planning. A lot of it is just kind of just thinking about where are people naturally coming together and how can we bring yoga in to facilitate more community and also to manage stress in a lot of ways and help people to relax, particularly with like big life experiences. Where can yoga be inserted in ways that can help bring people together?